So, welcome to the Buddhist Society of Victoria's Monday night guided meditation, being live streamed from Newbury Buddhist Monastery. And this is Ajahn Nissarano, the Australian monk who ordained with Ajahn Brahm 23 years ago, and for the last 14 years was living in Sri Lanka. So welcome to tonight. And as usual, we'll have the introduction to the meditation. We'll do the guided meditation, and then it says here a bell will be rung, and then there's an opportunity for comments, questions, or complaints at the end, and maybe some answers. And also, if you want to ask those questions, you can put them in the YouTube live chat column in the YouTube channel. So this evening we will be looking. The theme for this evening will be nothing to do. Nothing to do. Interesting theme, isn't it? It's a theme I've been using in my meditation for about the last week, and it's particularly useful when you're busy. Because when we're busy, we're so taken up with so much. We have this idea we've got so much to do, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. And I use with this nothing to do mantra, I call it, sometimes can use an image that can help support that feeling of turning the phone off, powering off the phone or any other device, just closing it down, because that gives us the idea of nothing to do, gives us a feeling for it. And the purpose of this meditation, of this theme, is really to train ourselves, to recondition ourselves so that we develop this habit to stop. And when we can stop, this triggers the letting go. That's actually the stopping. And we can just be with whatever is happening at that moment. We don't have to structure it. We don't have to do this. We don't have to be in the present moment even. We can just be with whatever is happening. So the situation we find ourselves in is that we are all, almost without exception, addicted to doing. When we finish one thing, we think, what's next? What's next? Sometimes it's almost anxiety too. And of course, work, doing is often related to work. We have to do some work. But of course, some people become workaholics, don't they? So it's good to enjoy one's work. But if we become a workaholic, we are probably trying to escape from something, from a problem, from a difficulty in our life. But this doing business is not only confined to work. It's entertainment. This is pretty serious business, really, entertainment. Because we watch videos, and you can watch hours and hours of Netflix. I heard of one young man who told me he watched 8 hours at one stretch to watch a TV series that he'd missed a series of, so he was catching up. He said by the end of it, it wasn't that much fun. It was a comedy. But we listen to music, we read books, we eat food, we exercise the body, we go for walks, or we go to the gym. We keep going and going. And of course it does rather bring up the point, are we trying to distract ourselves by all this doing? And if so, from what? So of course, we're distracting ourselves from our problems. And I always remember Ayakema. Ayakema used to say one of the favourite escape routes from dukkha, this is suffering, unsatisfactoriness, is distraction. The other one she mentions, it's a very popular one too, is the blaming game. You blame someone. Sometimes we blame ourselves. But distraction is a very, very popular one. Desperately looking for happiness outside ourselves. And distracting ourselves from being with ourselves. This is often the case, that we're not really comfortable with ourselves. We're not at ease with ourselves. We're not at home with ourselves. And we're trying to fill this void inside with doing and with activity. And we don't know who we are or what we are. And actually I might mention now, this is quite a nice one here. There's an amazing This is an amazing saying from 1654, which says it all. And it's called, I'll ask if people know who it was who said this, all of humanity's problems stem, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability or people's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Isn't that amazing? All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly, or people's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Does anybody know who said that? It's a famous saying, but it's a French philosopher, Blaise Pascal. And he says we fear silence of existence, we fear boredom, and we choose aimless distraction. And it helps us to run away from our problems of emotions, of our emotional problems. And there was a very interesting study that was done, Ajahn Brahm mentioned this earlier this year, about a study they did at a university in America where they had a group of students, and they asked these students to sit for 10 to 20 minutes in a room to sit. They weren't allowed to get up and walk around or do other things for 10 or 20 minutes, and just to sit with themselves, to think whatever they wish to think, positive thoughts or whatever. And they showed they said there was a buzzer, there was a button they could press, and they asked people to press it, and it gave an electric shock. And they said, they asked all the participants, was this pleasant or unpleasant? Unpleasant. Would you pay to avoid this? And they said, we would pay to avoid this. And then, when they actually had to do their 10 to 20 minutes, sitting in a room quietly on their own, without their phones, without anything, any external support or distraction, what happened? They found many of the participants pressed the button. Even though they said they'd pay to avoid the pain, they pressed it. Interestingly, 70% of men pressed the button and 25% of women did it. So that shows you a big difference. So that's quite interesting. It really shows how uncomfortable we are with ourselves. It shows how uncomfortable we are with our thoughts too. So that was something I thought I just mentioned there. But our doing is not confined only to work or to our entertainment. It's also to meditation. People often want to do the meditation. And this approach, to doing the meditation, and myself, I remember in the early days, I was very interested in techniques. I thought if we get the right technique, surely you'll crack it. You'll do it. And then I didn't realise, that it's really our attitude, the mind states, the feelings we're developing that's important. I did notice that a lot of the monks, the early Buddhist talks I heard were about attitudes. I thought, what's the point? We want to get the right technique. So that's that approach of doing the meditation. And of course, Ajahn Brahm, he mentions, stop trying to meditate. It's the same idea, isn't it? Stop trying to meditate, because that really inhibits the meditation. It really stops it. And it's really our desire is what's driving it, desire to get something, to achieve something, to control. So this is really what we, is behind this this approach to meditation, of doing the meditation, and the desire to get something. And of course, it's partly because many people today, we have this, what they call bucket list. That word didn't used to exist, but this sort of list of things that one has to do in life, a bucket list, the best things that one wants to do. And so meditation is often on there. And so if you can do meditation, you can tick it off, I've done meditation. And then, of course, people are always asking, this is one of the things you see in meditation. If we're asking what next, that shows that the mind is not very peaceful. It shows that there's wanting, desire operating, and the meditation won't succeed. And interestingly enough, Ajahn Ganha, who's quite a famous monk in northeast Thailand, who stayed at Ajahn Brahm's monastery twice, actually. I remember him staying there at one time. And then someone asked Ajahn Brahm how he meditates. And his answer was, I do nothing. I do nothing. But I would say nothing to do is better than I do nothing, because, again, people are trying to do nothing. It's often the case, actually. How do you do nothing? And that's what they think. We try to do it, we try to do this nothing, don't we? So doing is a really strong habit we've created. It's really an addiction that we have. And just to sit and be at ease with ourselves, with whatever's going on, is difficult. But I reflected that in Sri Lanka, I've seen people sitting on their verandas for hours doing nothing. I don't know what they were thinking, but they seemed to be quite happy just sitting there, watching life go by. And but we really, I think in the West, I don't think many people could do that. They couldn't do that. Just to sit on the veranda and watch things and just let them be. So this is something we can reflect on. And it's good to ask ourselves, why is it so difficult to do nothing? Sometimes it can be, that people think too, well, it's lazy, isn't it, if we're doing nothing? There can be other reasons for that. But in order for this nothing to do guided meditation to work, we have to see the disadvantage in doing things. And I think especially when we're very busy, we can feel that, because you feel a bit overburdened by it. But we also notice with all this doing, whether it's in meditation, whether it's in entertainment or work, it is driven by desire to get something, to achieve something. And with that comes a certain frustration, because we don't necessarily get what we want. And we can feel disappointed, particularly in meditation. If we have an idea, we want to get something, then if we don't get that, then we think, wow, this is a failure, this is not good. But also this doing, we see, drives restlessness and distraction. And in a strange way too, it promotes boredom too, because sometimes nothing satisfies, but we feel like we have to do something, And boredom is one of the big things that drives us in, you see it in the West particularly. We cannot bear being bored. We have to turn something on, do something, watch something, eat something, anything really. But it's all not satisfying often when we have that state of mind. But also, all this doing, of course, tires the mind and tires the body as well. When I mention this list, do you recognize the list? I wonder if the people who are listening to this recognize the list. It's a 5 hindrances plus. And this is what doing promotes, actually. And the way we can give up anything, actually, seeing the disadvantage in it, seeing if it's actually benefiting us or not, and to see that all the doing that we can get caught up in is like a habit, but it's like a treadmill too. There's no end to doing, actually. There's no end to doing. And we can look for a way to find rest for the body. And this learning to turn away from doing, stopping actually, then can stop desire arising for a time. Just temporarily stopping, is something that we can manage. And when we have this, when we hear this mantra, nothing to do, the mind and the body can relax, and we can be happy thinking nothing to do. And it can create quite a pleasant feeling. And of course, if we use that image, of powering off a phone or a device, that can actually support it too. So it can create this pleasant feeling, and that's very important in meditation, to have a pleasant feeling with the meditation. And any time during the meditation, if you notice the mind wandering off, just remind yourself, nothing to do. You don't have to get rid of the thinking. Just nothing to do. Just if you say let it be, then it sounds like you're going to do something as well. So we can use that feeling to bring up what it can bring up for us. If we find that pleasant, then we can let go of doing things and just let things be, just be with things. Sometimes people say, is there a difference between letting go, letting be and letting go? And of course, I think letting be seems more passive, and it comes from a sense of acceptance of the present moment as it is. But letting go is a bit more active because it triggers, I think it triggers letting be. It triggers it. The mind letting go of something when it understands the reality, then you can just be with that reality. You don't have to change it, improve it, add to it. And so a very good analogy for that someone from the Buddhist Society mentioned to me, Sri Juth, was letting go. Evidently one teacher said is like unclenching the hand when it's face down. Letting go. And there's a fear, because when you open the hand and it's face down, something will drop, and there's an insecurity that goes with that. And of course this is in meditation. It can be this fear of losing our sense of ourself being threatened. So, but in this example, in this simile, letting be is like an unclenched hand facing upwards, and it allows whatever's on the palm to go in its own good time. Isn't that nice? To go in its own good time. And this letting be, well, we need a bit of letting go and letting be with our children too, when we're raising children, allow them to grow the way their character is, and try and help them, support them. And also what can help us develop this feeling of the nothing to do is reflecting on what we are free from. So we can just think of the things we're free from. These things are like a burden. We're free from work. We're free from work. We're free from shopping. Some people like shopping, actually, even if we had Boxing Day sales just recently. And, free from cleaning, all the chores, and anything that we get caught up in. We can be free from it. And so this can be a very good way to intensify the feeling of nothing to do. Some people may find this idea, this mantra, nothing to do, might frighten them, or they might get bored, they think, because we say nature abhors a vacuum. And people's minds do too. So we try and fill, as I mentioned before, fill that vacuum with anything, really. It can be pleasant or unpleasant, as I mentioned. These electric shocks that the students were quite willingly undertaking because there was nothing to do. So if we have an unpleasant feeling, arise when we hear nothing to do, then we can just ask ourselves, why is this? And not have a judgment, just to investigate it. And usually we'll find it challenges our sense of self. We feel we are the doer, and if we stop doing, who am I? So it's very important. So the benefits too of nothing to do guided meditation is that it's an antidote for stress. As I mentioned, when you're very busy, I've been very busy recently, so it's been good that it's come up for me at this time, perhaps because of that. If you live a busy life, this could be a very useful meditation for you, nothing to do. And the reason it can be because it's an antidote to stress. And I've found, and I think this is very true with most people, we get stressed because we think, too much to do. There's not enough time. There's either three reasons, actually. It's either there's too much to do, we feel overwhelmed by what we have to do. There's not enough time to do it, or I can't do it. I feel like I can't do this. And then when I have these feelings, particularly too much to do, it becomes a mantra. We just keep running it. And we get stressed by the mantra, actually. And when that happens, I make a list. I make a list of what I've got to do, and I think, wow, that's not that much. And then can relax. You can see the mind let go. Because what it's really been stressed by is not what we have to do, but just this mantra. There's too much to do. So this is a very useful way of using this nothing to do mantra, instead of too much to do, or not enough time, or I can't do this. So it's also very useful, this nothing to do in daily life, because there are lots of moments in our lives when we can use it, when we're not doing much, so we can just really, do nothing, because we've got nothing to do. We can just be with whatever we're doing, whether we're on the bus or on the train, in the doctor's surgery, waiting to see the doctor, wherever. So we can just be with ourselves in the present moment. But we don't have to do the present moment. Just let the present moment be as it is. So this is the introduction for the Nothing to Do guided meditation. So let's see if we can actually do nothing, or we can be with nothing to do rather than do nothing. So we can start. And this will be about 45 minutes meditation. Most of it is guided meditation, but 45 minutes, and then we can follow that with comments, questions and complaints. So please find a comfortable posture for the meditation, whether it's sitting on a seat, a chair, sitting on a cushion, meditation cushion, or however you wish to meditate, as long as it's a posture that has energy in it, is comfortable, and we can maintain for this meditation. And so we can come into the present and let go or leave the past in the past, leave the future in the future. One of the sayings I like, the past is history and the future is a mystery. So we can just let it be, coming here into the present moment, just however it is. And we can check up on the body to see how comfortable it is, to see if the back is straight, not rigid, that the head is feeling comfortable, balanced over the shoulders, and the shoulders balanced over the hips. Can move the shoulders a little, or just to bring some relaxation to any tension in the shoulders. Just seeing what the body needs at this moment. Being in touch with the body, listening to the body. And now we can relax the body mentally, starting at the top of the head and taking in the back of the head and the sides of the head, and soothing it, relaxing it, giving it this kind attention, allowing any tension in the top of the head, back of the head, side of the head to relax, soothing it. And bringing to mind the forehead and relaxing the forehead, soothing it, giving it a mental massage. And around the eyes, the cheeks of the face, and around the mouth and chin. Allowing them to relax. to be at ease. And bringing to mind the neck and moving our attention around the neck, giving it this warm, gentle mental massage. Now bringing to mind the right shoulder, starting at the neck, and we can move our attention along the right shoulder, soothing any tension, any stiffness, relaxing it, giving it this kind attention. Now bringing to mind the right arm, starting at the top of the right arm and moving our attention down the right arm to include the elbow, the wrist, the hands and fingers, soothing them with a gentle mental massage. Now we can bring to mind the left shoulder, starting at the neck and moving our attention slowly along the left shoulder, soothing it, soothing any painful areas, tense areas, relaxing them with this kind mental massage. And now bringing to mind the left arm, starting at the top of the left arm and moving our attention down the left arm to include the elbow, the wrist, the left hand and fingers, soothing them, relaxing them with this kind, warm attention. Now bringing to mind the back, just below the shoulders, and moving our attention down the back, soothing any sore or painful areas, relaxing and soothing the back with this kind, gentle attention. Now bringing to mind the front of the body, starting just below the shoulders and moving our attention down the front of the body to include the chest, the diaphragm area, the stomach and the abdomen below the stomach. Soothing them, noticing any tight areas, hard areas, painful areas, and soothing them with this warm, relaxing attention. And now we can bring to mind the right leg, starting at the top of the right leg and moving our attention slowly down the right leg, all around it, to include the knee, the ankle, foot and toes. And starting at the top of the right leg, soothing it, giving it this mental massage. And now we can bring to mind the left leg, starting at the top of the left leg and moving our attention down the left leg, all around it, to include the knee, the ankle, foot and toes, soothing the left leg, giving it this mental massage. And now we can bring to mind the whole body here, the experience of the whole body just sitting however we find, whether on a chair or a cushion, however it is. Aware of the whole body, sitting here in the present moment. And we can bring to mind our intention for this meditation to allow letting go to happen, so that we can let things be, just be with things as they are, ourself, whatever is happening in the present moment. In order to do this, we can just bring to mind the phrase, nothing to do. Nothing to do. For the time of this meditation, there's nothing to do. And we can imagine turning off our phones or any other devices, just seeing them power off, remembering there's nothing to do. We're just disconnecting for this time of the meditation. And we can get in touch with the feeling that that phrase, nothing to do, may bring up for us. Or the feeling that image of turning off the phone, turning off the device brings up. we can just be aware of the present moment, however it is. We don't need to rearrange it or improve on it. Just have this feeling of nothing to do with whatever we're experiencing in the meditation. We're not getting involved with whatever is occurring. There's nothing, we don't have to do anything with it. We don't have to fix it or change it. Just allowing things to be as they are. And if our minds drift off during the meditation, just to remember, nothing to do. I'm doing something. Or you can even think, absolutely nothing to do. And to remember the image of turning off the phone or the device. And very important, remembering the feeling that comes up when we have nothing to do. Feeling of freedom, of ease, of space. And now we can remember that feeling of nothing to do, and we can share it with everyone listening to this guided meditation this evening, wherever they are throughout the world. All the meditators listening to this now. This feeling of nothing to do. Sharing it. And we can share this feeling of nothing to do with all those around wherever we find ourselves, whether they be human beings, animals, insects, with all those around us. And we can share this feeling in ever-widening circles, further and further, to include the whole planet and all realms of existence. This feeling of nothing to do, this freedom, this ease, this relaxation. And now we can develop the aspiration or the intention to remember when it is the appropriate time. Nothing to do. Nothing to do. And get in contact with that feeling. And just be when we have those opportunities, when we meditate, other times during the day, when we're not doing things. Nothing to do. Just remember that. And now we can review how we feel now after this meditation, the guided meditation. How do we feel? And how did we feel when we thought nothing to do, or we imagined, visualized turning off the phone, seeing the phone power off, or the device power off? And did we find that letting go happened when we use this phrase, the feeling accompanying this phrase, or the image, and that we were able to just let things be? And lastly, what did we learn from our experience? What did we learn? So please slowly come out of meditation if you wish to, and to move your body to make it more comfortable. And so now we have some questions, so we can deal with those. I'd just like to mention about that experiment that I mentioned with the university students. And one of the interesting things was they found that it wasn't, they thought, well, maybe it's only young people who are used to mobile phones, who are used to Facebook and all these things. So they tried it with an older generation, and they didn't have the electric shock button, but they allowed them to do it at home. They found that they just couldn't do it either. And they were often cheating. So it's not just age-related. So that was quite an interesting thing. And the other thing that was interesting that I read about that study was they asked people if you'd had any meditation experience, these young people. Some of them had, but they found very little correlation between their ability to just sit there quietly and having had meditation experience. But the scientists who were doing this experiment, social scientists, said that it may be different if the people were experienced meditators, because they don't know how much experience these people had. They might have just meditated once in their life. So that's interesting too, because you would think, wouldn't you, that if you had more meditation experience, you could be with yourself much more easily in that situation, and probably not shock yourself. So anyway, now I'll pass over to Ken, who's going to ask the questions for this evening, some of the questions.
Thank you, Ajahn, for the wonderful guided meditation. We've got a couple of questions. The first question is, I've heard it said that enlightenment is an accident. Is this true?
Is enlightenment an accident? Is this true? That's a good question. Well, no, enlightenment is not quite an accident, because there are causes and conditions for it, aren't there? You know, when you think about it, the causes and conditions that I think of anyway is that the mind needs to be totally pure of desire, aversion and delusion, and also the mind needs to have developed the wisdom, the insight into the nature of reality, and seen, you know, that everything is impermanent, uncertain, unreliable, and that because of that there isn't a permanent happiness that one can find anywhere, any place, and also that there isn't a permanent me here. And so when a person has those insights, which lead to an understanding of the Four Noble Truths as well, as part of unsatisfactoriness, then enlightenment is possible. So there, in a sense, there are causes, but of course it happens when the causes are fulfilled, and so we can't quite predict that. And you see in the verses of the enlightened monks and nuns, sometimes it happens in the most unusual places. So one monk, for instance, was going into the village, I think for alms round, probably, you know, collecting the food in the morning, and there was in the town that he was going through, there was a dancing girl who was singing and dancing, and people were out on the street, live entertainment, and they were, everybody was enjoying it, and he saw it. Saw this woman, he was very attracted, and then it says in his verses he saw the danger in this sensual desire, this desire, how to take him through countless rebirths, and he could see the danger in it, and then his mind just released, and he became enlightened just at that time. And we hear of other occasions where monks and nuns became enlightened, the most unusual times, you know, like one person. It happened to a monk and a nun, actually. I think it was perhaps more common than we think. They were unable to get what we call samadhi, one-pointedness of mind. Sometimes people call it concentration. Ajahn Brahm wouldn't like that. And because of that, they decided they would commit suicide. They would hang themselves. And they'd put the rope up, ready to hang themselves. And just at that moment, they became enlightened. So the causes and conditions are there, but we don't quite know when it will happen, when they will be fulfilled. But it is very important to see that it's not a personal thing. It happens when our minds understand things at a very deep level. It's not at an intellectual level, it's at experiential level. And as we call it, direct insight or direct knowledge. They sometimes call it abhinya. So, yes. So thank you for that. I hope that answered the question. Is it an accident or not?
Thank you, Ajahn. We've got one question from the audience, and then I'll continue with online questions next.
All right, yes. Very good.
Thank you, Ajahn, for the meditation. Would you consider practicing metta meditation as doing something?
Right. Is practicing metta meditation doing something? Well, you could say that it is doing something, but it's creating, really, it's whatever we do is just to create the feeling of metta, to bring that up, so that once that arises, that is, we have arrived, actually, in a sense, because we had that feeling within ourselves. And then the natural consequence of feeling metta within ourselves is to really to share it with other people, actually, to share it with other beings, not only people, the animals and insects and all beings. So, in a sense, it's interesting, I was going to talk about in the guided meditation, the Buddha talks about two types of meditation, and he talks about directed meditation and undirected meditation. And I think something like metta meditation, a meditation with an object, this is directed. We are using the mind in a directed sense. But I would think of undirected meditation as being when we are not using an object, we are not doing something, we're just being with whatever, and using that experience as a basis for peace, for the peace of stillness, and also for the basis for wisdom to arise as well. So often you see in Vipassana meditation techniques, they have more this approach, that you're just open to what you're experiencing. And for instance, in Chittanapassana, you're watching just the reactions of the mind to things, basically liking and disliking going on. So I think it's not like there's only one type of meditation. And certainly, I would say metta meditation is directed, because we are aiming, we are directing the mind towards developing metta. And our success will depend on if we can trigger that feeling, and however we can do that. And as I mentioned yesterday, about metta meditation, we can use words. Some people use words, may you be happy and well. There can be many words, actually, as long as they bring up the feeling. Or we can use images, and one of the ones that I like, that Ayakema used, was flower garden in the heart. So you envisage these, imagine this flower garden with beautiful flowers, beautiful scents, beautiful colours, everything. And you're picking these flowers, giving them to yourselves, and then giving it to other people. And so you can use images to bring up metta. And the other thing that I like very much, I use mainly actually, are concepts. So the concept like of being a best friend, if we think about that, we can get in touch with the feeling that we have for what a best friend is, what it means. And then when we get that feeling, we can give it to ourselves, we can be our own best friend, and then we can start spreading it. We don't have to spread it to individuals, we can spread it to just group, as I did in the meditation then, just geographically even. But we can also bring people to mind. And it can be very, very powerful, particularly if metta has got some samadhi behind it. The mind is very one-pointed and powerful. So that can be a very good way. So that's a concept, best friend. And the Buddha used the concept of a mother's love for her only child. And that can work for some people, depending on your mother. But it doesn't have to be a mother, it can be your father. It doesn't have to be mother or father, it can be auntie or uncle or grandmother. Whoever it is that has, arouses, that's the word, arouses that feeling of metta in us. So there are 3 ways we can do it. There are probably more ways too. So from words, images, or from concepts. So that's it. But it is directed because we are, aiming to bring up this feeling of metta, loving kindness, or friendliness, I like. So thank you for that, Liv. That's good. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you,
So,
Ajahn.
Any other questions?
We've got 3 more questions and
All right.
about 10 minutes left.
10 minutes,
So,
yeah, that's good.
The next question is, I have a problem when to stop meditation.
Wow.
I feel conflicted when I stop meditation because I want to do something, or I don't because I should not stop to do something. What is your experience?
Wow. Gee, that's interesting, isn't it? I think when we are conflicted, maybe we are thinking quite a bit at that stage. Could be thinking at that stage. I tend to find from my own experience, I just know when I think the meditation has finished. And how do I know the meditation has finished? Because the mind is moving away from, peacefulness, maybe moving away from the object. The body's uncomfortable. These things are all signs. So I think we have to be sensitive to it and also not have an ideal of how long we should meditate for. People do, and they set, times for themselves. And then they say, no, I'm not going to get up for 2 hours, whatever it is. And so this can cause a bit of a conflict. So one of the things you could ask yourself is, why do I feel conflicted? Ask yourself and just find out why that is. There's obviously some expectation there, that I should meditate for much, much longer, or, and the conflict can be, I want to stop now. So just be in touch with, how you're, without a lot of this thinking, with how you're feeling, and just see, are the conditions for the meditation to continue there or not, and then break the meditation. But certainly if we're having conflict, it means we've got some agenda running, some idea that it should be like this and not like that. So that's good. Good to have a look at. Expectation, that's the word. So thank you for that one. Yes.
Thank you, Ajahn. The next question is, what is meant by becoming Dhamma? What is meant by transcending the Dhamma?
Right. What's meant by becoming Dhamma? What's meant by transcending Dhamma? When I would say that when we becoming Dhamma is, of course, becoming enlightened, becoming in tune with everything. This is awakening, so that we are no longer separated from the reality that we're surrounded by. We've given up the idea of it's not. We haven't given it up. It's just been removed or seen through the idea of a permanent me, a permanent self, and also looking for happiness in the world, and realizing that things that are impermanent, changing, unreliable, uncertain. So we become Dhamma when that is our reality, when we know the Four Noble Truths, not from theory but from experience. We're seeing it around us, and actual fact, that is great happiness. It's not a sad thing at all. Great happiness. And then to transcend Dhamma, I thought about that, and I think maybe we could say transcending Dhamma is experiencing Nibbana. When we awaken, when people awaken, become enlightened, that's in this life. And then when they transcend Dhamma, in a sense, the worldly Dhamma, the Dhamma of existence, then they experience Nibbana. And so that could be called transcending Dhamma. But there's a book called Being Dhamma, I think, it's about some of Ajahn Chah's teaching, Being Dhamma, and he uses that concept too. So thank you for that, Ken. I hope that answered it.
Thank you, Ajahn. The last question for tonight is, Venerable, just now in the guided meditation, I found pain on my sitting bones, which I can't able to take any longer, so I moved my sitting. Please advise what I should do. Thanks.
Right. I think you did the right thing. You did the right thing. Because, I think sometimes it's interesting to explore the feelings, painful feelings, and we can just see the nature of them, see that they come and they go, that we tend to really get concerned about them, we do. But, if they are becoming so pressing that they are going to, derail the meditation, then fine to move. We usually say move mindfully, slowly, and change the posture. Because meditation is not about torturing ourselves. This is what the Buddha discovered, that these painful they're supposed to be spiritual practices of, starving the body and, standing on one leg, or doing all sorts of sitting in the sun, even though it's boiling hot and all that sort of thing. He found that didn't lead to enlightenment. That was an extreme. Indulging in the body is another extreme, but that's tormenting or torturing the body is another extreme. So no need to torture the body. If it's an interesting thing to explore, pain, and sometimes when the mind is very stable, it's possible to explore pain. But there has to be no aversion in the mind to it, because if there's aversion, then there's nothing, one won't develop much wisdom or insight from it. So it must come from that base. Yeah. So fine to move. I think that's a wise thing to do. So thank you for those questions, and I think we can finish the evening here. We'll finish off with the Arahang. So those who'd like to join, who know it. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. So, thank you for